Good afternoon and welcome to the August 2022 ICIT Cyber Legislation and Federal Initiatives webcast. My name is Drew Spaniel and I'm the lead researcher here with ICIT. If you're unfamiliar with the Institute for Critical Infrastructure Technology or if this is your first time joining us, ICIT is a 501c3 nonprofit think tank that focuses on objective, vendor-agnostic, nonpartisan cybersecurity research affecting the nation's 16 critical infrastructure sectors. Our mission is to cultivate a cybersecurity renaissance that will improve the resiliency of our nation's 16 critical infrastructure sectors, defend our democratic institutions, and empower generations of cybersecurity leaders. You can engage with ICIT via our in-person and virtual events, via our newsletters and e-blasts, which you can sign up for at our website, www.icitech.org, and on social networks such as LinkedIn. Individual ICIT members receive 2 analyst reports that will go into greater depth of the information covered in today's briefing. The first report is the Cyber Legislation Report, which will cover our legislative initiatives and the new bills coming out. And the second report covers the agency initiatives. Here's an example of the inside of the agency report. As you can see, we have a longer description of each agency initiative, as well as some links that you can follow to either find out more, or they may, if there's an RFI, it may link directly to that, or agency event, or something to sign up for. Jumping right on in this month, we have 14 pieces of legislation and 24 agency initiatives to cover. So beginning with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA. CISA and the FBI released a joint cybersecurity advisory to alert critical infrastructure organizations to the dangers of the Zeppelin ransomware. Threat actors are believed to have been using the Zeppelin ransomware from 2019 through at least June of 2022 to target defense contractors, educational institutions, technology companies, manufacturers, and healthcare organizations, with a seemingly focus on healthcare organizations. Zeppelin functions as a ransomware as a service operation at the moment, and it's derived from the Delphi-based Vega malware family. I believe in its current form, it's typically deployed onto systems via vulnerable remote desktop protocol or RDP exploitation and phishing campaigns. CISA released its Protecting U.S. Elections, a CISA cybersecurity toolkit. The one-stop catalog serves as a free service and tool set available for state and local election officials to improve the cybersecurity and resilience of their infrastructures. The toolkit was developed through CISA's Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative, or JCDC, which worked with public and private sector organizations, including the election community and JCDC Alliance members, to compile the free resources. The toolkit is organized into broad categories designed to help election officials assess their risk using election security risk profile tools that were developed by CISA and the U.S. Election Assistance Commission, or EAC, to find tools related to protecting voter information, websites, email systems, and networks, and to protect assets against phishing, ransomware, and distributed denial of service attacks. CISA and the Australian Cybersecurity Centre, ACSC, released a joint cybersecurity advisory on the top malware strains of 2021. I believe the report highlights the top dozen, and it found that some of the leading pieces of malware used in 2021 were remote access Trojans, banking Trojans, information stealers, and ransomware. The report also advises on best practices and immediate actions that can be taken to protect critical systems against exploitation. If you are track malware or threat groups, I definitely recommend taking a look at this report. It has a sort of a mini profile for each of the highlighted malware strains. CISA and the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center, MS-ISAC, published a joint cybersecurity advisory in response to active exploitation of multiple common vulnerabilities and exposures, or CVEs, against the Zimbra Collaboration Suite, which is known as ZCS. It's an enterprise cloud-hosted collaboration software and email platform. We list the CVEs in the report, and you can find them on the advisory. It's believed that cyber threat actors may be targeting the unpatched ZCS instances in both government and private sector networks. CISA and MSISAC strongly urge users and administrators to apply the guidance in their recommendation section to help organizations secure their systems against the malicious activity. In their recent Insights notice, CISA officials have outlined risks and remediation and mitigation techniques for organizations against mass post-quantum attacks. To prevent widespread quantum hacks before they are made possible via potential quantum computer development in the future, CISA is warning organizations working within critical infrastructures to begin migrating and securing their networks to post-quantum cryptography. Until more post-quantum algorithms arrive, the CISA notice asks that networks employ symmetric key cryptography, which only allows one key between communicating devices and is less susceptible to quantum algorithm hacks. Utilizing longer key sizes is also recommended for critical infrastructure organizations. CISA is seeking cybersecurity talent to work in-house on managing and expanding use of the .gov address, the top-level domain reserved for government entities. CISA took over management of .gov from GSA in spring of 2022 under the .gov Act of 2020. This month, CISA released 5 industrial control system advisories and encourages users and administrators to review the newly released ICS advisories for technical details and mitigations. The advisories affect Mitsubishi Melsec IQ-R, Q, and L series CPU modules and Melipkic systems, Siemens OpenSSL affected industrial products, Mitsubishi Electric multiple factory automation products, Siemens Linux-based products, and Siemens industrial products. The DHS Office of Inspector General has published the findings of its evaluations of CISA's Automated Indicator Sharing Capability, or AIS, and determined that the quality of information shared with AIS participants was not always adequate to identify and mitigate cyber threats. In particular, the OIG found that cyber threat indicators that were shared did not contain enough contextual information to help decision makers take action. Shareholders also have reported a number of false positives, and CISA believes that this tracks back to potential reporting with from its community on low confidence issues, and they are working on helping federal stakeholders filter out low confidence indicators. OIG notes that it attributes the shortcoming to limited AIS functionality, inadequate staffing, and external factors, but it also had previously highlighted these challenges in its Cybersecurity Act evaluation for 2017 and 2018. The OIG made 4 recommendations to CISA that include improving information quality by increasing participants' sharing of cyber information, completing the AIS upgrades, conducting additional training and outreach, and hiring the staff needed to improve the AIS program's operational effectiveness. As part of the National Security Memorandum on Improving Cybersecurity for Critical Infrastructure Control Systems, CISA has been doing 100-day cybersecurity sprints with critical infrastructure sectors. And it is believed that in late August or early September, they will be starting the 100-day plan for the chemical sector, which includes aggressive but achievable milestones and will assist owners and operators as they modernize their cyber defenses. CISA is also preparing to issue performance-based standards for the broader chemical sector, which can be thought of as a subset of some standards laid out in the NIST cybersecurity framework. CISA is working with industry to ensure that the standards are applicable and make sense. Moving on to a different, in this case, a entity spun out of a congressional committee, Cyberspace Solarium Commission co-chairs have called for HHS to conduct a briefing on healthcare sector cybersecurity. In the letter to HHS Secretary Becerra, Senator Angus King and Representative Mike Gallagher urged HHS to disclose the current status of healthcare cybersecurity efforts. They also urge HHS and the Biden administration to bolster cybersecurity within the healthcare sector, and they called on HHS to hold an urgent briefing on the administration's current cybersecurity posture and plans for improvement. As part of the briefing, they specifically request an assessment of the current organizational structure, roles, and responsibilities that HHS employs to support healthcare cybersecurity, including intra-department coordination. Additionally, they would like the briefing to shed light on the current gaps in authority that HHS has to ensure that healthcare cybersecurity and the resources that HHS has and requires to serve as an effective sector risk management agency. Finally, they inquired about the interagency coordination structures, successes, and challenges involved in improving HHS healthcare cybersecurity efforts. The National Renewable Energy Laboratory has released its DER Risk Manager, or DER-RM, which is a downloadable application that implements and automates a widely trusted framework for information security from the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST. The DER-RM, developed with support from the Department of Energy Federal Energy Management Program, or FEMP, offers a user-friendly solution for sites that must comply with NIST's risk management framework and are seeking to secure distributed energy resources like solar panels and battery backups against exploitable vulnerabilities. The Department of Homeland Security's OIG has issued 2 recommendations for DHS Information Classification Program. They report that DHS fell back on its intelligence systems rating under the FISMA for fiscal year 2021. And they made 2 recommendations to the Department's Office of Intelligence Analysis to address identified issues, and the Department agreed to those recommendations and concurred with both of those recommendations. In particular, this is the classification program for information that determines, top secret, classified, so on and so forth. The report itself has not been publicly released, so if there's more information on that, that is released publicly, we'll report on it in the future. The OIG has also recommended the DHS develop a unified counter-information strategy. Their audit found that DHS and its components have the following limitations to their authorities. CISA can only counter disinformation that represents a threat to critical infrastructure security and cybersecurity. CISA must protect U.S. citizens' privacy and cannot collect and share disinformation from social media posts if it results in disadvantages to people with a particular viewpoint or involves personally identifiable information. And CISA and the Office of Intelligence and Analysis must consider a U.S. citizen's First Amendment rights to free speech and social media and the rights of the readers of the posts. The watchdog said, in the absence of a unified department-wide strategy, has led to a confusion by external partners regarding specific DHS components, responsibilities, and whom to contact within DHS. OIG recommended that the Office of Strategy, Policy, and Plans develop a unified strategy to improve DHS coordination among the components and with other agencies to counter disinformation campaigns that appear in social media. DHS concurred and said that in May of 2022, Secretary Mayorkas asked the Bipartisan Homeland Security Advisory Council to review the department's work on addressing disinformation and that threaten homeland security. The department plans to share with the public HSAC's final recommendations, which are expected to be completed at the end of August 2022. DHS leadership will then determine strategic direction in countering disinformation after reviewing the recommendations and consulting with stakeholders, including congressional members, as appropriate. The department expects to complete this process by August of 2023. The HHS OIG has urged it to improve the cybersecurity of the Organ Procurement and Transportation Network, which is part of the Health Resources and Services Administration, HRSA's national system that distributes donor organs to individuals waiting for transplants. OPTN is a private-public partnership that links all professionals involved in the U.S. donation and transplantation system, and the OIG audit concluded the HRSA should improve its oversight and cybersecurity on the OPTN. They recommended that additional oversight controls and procedures be implemented, which include deliverable schedules, compliance assessments, and monitoring to ensure that the OPTN contractor complies with all federal cybersecurity requirements and implements security controls over the OPTN in an effective and timely manner. HRSA stated that it has made efforts to continuously strengthen its oversight and controls, and added that a federal employee to serve as the OPTN Information System Security Officer to provide oversight of those controls, security procedures, and deliverable schedules, as well as security compliance assessments. In addition, HRSA has indicated that it has taken action to finalize the policies and procedures that were in draft during the audit and improve access controls of the OPT. Moving on to NIST for this month, NIST is developing recommendations to help organizations navigate the pervasive biases that often accompany AI technologies. NIST is asking for public and private comments on the second draft of its Artificial Intelligence Risk Management Framework and the companion NIST AI RMF Playbook. The RMF Playbook is intended to help organizations implement the framework with suggested actions, references, and supplementary guidance. The draft framework is split into 4 functions: govern, map, measure, and manage. The playbook will offer guidance on the first 2 functions, govern and map, and recommendations for the latter 2, measure and manage, will be available at a later date. NIST says that its socio-technical approach will, quote, connect the technology to societal values, and will develop guidance that considers ways humans can impact how technology is used. The framework also examines the interplay between biases and cybersecurity and how they interact with each other. The NIST Artificial Intelligence Risk Management Framework has focused on 3 types of biases associated with AI, which include statistical, systemic, and human. Current recommendations include fostering a governance structure with clear individual roles and responsibilities and a professional culture that supports transparent feedback on technologies and products. A systemic bias would be an example would be a business or operating process which contributes to a consistently skewed decision. To promote the transfer of technology from laboratory to marketplace, NIST has upgraded its iEdison platform to include new features and an improved interface. The updated iEdison is designed to help government grantees and contractors adhere to the reporting requirements of the Dole Act. Specifically, the act requires grantees to notify the government of inventions that came from the support of federal funding. Entities use iEdison to report their progress and inventions, request extensions and waivers, and inform the government of its limited use to patents on taxpayer-funded inventions. NIST and global research collaborators from fields such as physics, material science, chemistry, electrical engineering, and others have proposed a universal way to measure and evaluate next-generation field effect transistors, which are microcomponents for smartphones and advanced electronics. The paper provides specific criteria for evaluating and describing each of 8 key parameters critical to emerging designs for field effect transistors, or FET, performance. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is exploring multi-factor authentication beyond its network as it looks to strengthen cybersecurity in accordance with the federal Zero Trust strategy. NOAA is also increasing supply chain risk assessment of software as a service, looking not only at the firm, that is being contracted, but what they buy and use for services. The Office of Management and Budget has issued a memo to civilian federal agencies setting budget expectations for cyber goals. The memo outlines the administration's cross-agency cyber investment priorities for fiscal year 2024's budget, emphasizing that implementing zero trust and IT modernization must be at the top of the list. The federal zero trust strategy requires agencies to achieve specific zero trust security goals by the end of fiscal year 2024, and budget submissions are expected to prioritize ensuring the work is completed, the memo states. Agencies have submitted their zero trust implementation plans to OMB and a cross-government team of cybersecurity experts from OMB, the Office of the National Cyber Director, and CISA are engaging with agencies to refine these plans and define ambitious, achievable goals. The budget directive is aimed at ensuring that agencies demonstrate their commitment to zero trust by reflecting it in their budget requests. The memo points out that obsolete systems and the resulting technical debt have limited both the government's ability to deliver modern solutions to customers and also in the implementation of modern security best practices. It emphasizes that agencies should prioritize technology modernizations that lead with security integrated during the design phase as well as throughout the system lifecycle. These include accelerating adoption and use of secure cloud infrastructure and services, leveraging zero trust in architecture, developing and deploying federal shared products, services, and standards that empower secure customer experience, using shared security technologies, including the Department of Homeland Security's continuous diagnostics and mitigation platform, sharing awareness between security and IT operation teams across federal enterprise, and using agile development practices and integrating NIST's secure software development framework and software supply chain security guidance into agencies' software procurement and development practices. The memo also directs the civilian agencies to increase their collaboration with the private sector to protect critical infrastructure. A new report from the Department of Veterans Affairs Office of the Inspector General has found that the agency currently is not effectively managing or coordinating its Identity, Credential, and Access Management, or ICAM program, and because of that, it may be leaving information vulnerable to cyber intrusions. According to the report, the ICAM program did not meet 3 of the 4 federal requirements set by the OMB. Specifically, the VA failed to assign roles and responsibilities for ICAM management and coordination efforts, implement a single ICAM policy, or meet goals set by its technology solutions roadmap, or implement updated NIST digital identity risk management requirements. The report states that the VA is also at a risk of being unable to address the OIG's FISMA audit findings of deficiencies in the ICAM processes. The report recommends that the VA designate roles and responsibilities for all program offices involved with ICAM in addition to ensuring proper oversight and coordination are in place. It also recommends the VA update and publish ICAM directives and handbooks and current NIST requirements, as well as one of the associated with Homeland Security Presidential Directive 12's program and the VA's Personal Security and Suitability Program as required by the VA's Enterprise Directives Management Procedures. The VA agreed with all of the report's findings and recommendations. And finally, for this month, moving on to the White House Office of the National Cyber Director is working on incorporating performance metrics into the national cybersecurity strategy. It plans to incorporate a data-driven approach as part of the national cybersecurity strategy to measure the performance of federal agencies as well as the U.S. as a whole. The administration aims to analyze cyber performance data in order to better understand where future investments need to be made. It will also illustrate how well the government and private sector industry is making progress towards a resilient, secure digital infrastructure. Incorporate performance measurements is part of a larger strategy by the Biden administration to develop a more cohesive and resilient cyber infrastructure following a wave of sophisticated attacks from criminal threat actors and rival nation states. ONCD has identified 4 levels of accountability that include federal cohesion, public and private partnerships, aligning resources to aspirations, and enhancing resilience. The White House has been conducting classified cybersecurity briefings with executives from select critical infrastructure sectors as part of ongoing efforts to compel industry leaders to invest more in their digital defenses. Earlier this month, the White House delivered tailored briefings to railroad executives from across the transportation sector, and moving into September, the next meeting is believed to be scheduled with executives from the aviation industry. President Biden has announced his intent to appoint highly qualified and diverse industry and government leaders as members of the President's National Infrastructure Advisory Committee, or NIAC, which advises the White House on how to reduce physical and cyber risks and improve the security and resilience of the nation's critical infrastructure sectors. We include a list of the individuals in the report, and they are also available on the White House website. And finally, on our agency side for this month, the National Security Telecommunications Advisory Committee voted unanimously to send its report on its most recent report on IT system security to President Biden. The report, which focuses on security risks involved in the convergence of operation technology and information technology across digital systems. Moving on to our legislative side for this month, we are currently in the 117th Congress, which runs from January 3rd of 2021 to January 3rd of 2023. Currently, there are 16,164 bills at the time of this recording that have been introduced to the 117th Congress, of which 443 were cybersecurity bills, including resolutions and reintroductions. This accounts for around 2.7% of all bills introduced, and of those, currently 67, counting the 2 for this month, have been enacted or incorporated into other bills. This accounts for around 15.12% of cybersecurity bills introduced and 11.7% of all bills signed into law. Traditionally, around 7% of bills become law, so at 11.7%, cybersecurity bills are passing through both the House and the Senate at a higher rate than many other topic areas. At the time of this recording, average for the 117th Congress is actually a bit lower at 3.2% passage for all legislation. ICIT is currently tracking 295 unique pieces of legislation related to critical infrastructure, technology, and cybersecurity for the 117th Congress, which account for around 1.8% of the total bills introduced. This month, we have 14 bills relating to cybersecurity. It is worth noting that Congress has technically been on recess since the beginning of August, so it's a little impressive that 14 bills have still been introduced. 2 bills were enacted at the beginning of the month. The remainder of the bills in the very unlikely category. However, this month is a little bit of a misnomer for our ability to gauge that, so it is predictable that many of the bills will increase in their likelihood when Congress returns. Around 7 of the bills were updated legislation, including the 2 that were enacted, and the other half of the bills were newly introduced before Congress went on recess. 10 of the bills began in the Senate and 4 in the House. We do not have any updates for our category of appropriations for this month. Many of the appropriations bills were actually covered in last month's briefing in July. So if you are interested in the appropriation bills for this month, please take a look at that recording. I believe it was much longer than today's recording. We have 2 bills relating to the cyber workforce. S4730 amends the National Agriculture Research Extension and Teaching Policy Act of 1977 to establish a pilot program to provide competitive grants to land-grant colleges and universities to facilitate research and rapid workforce development and promote entrepreneurship and other benefits to communities. Among the established research program requirements, they include that Participants must be in emerging science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and other fields which include artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, advanced computing, advanced manufacture, 3D technology and printing, data management and use, digital technologies, biotechnology, health information technology, agriculture technology, advanced communication, and robotics. You can read more about the requirements for the grant program in the write-up or in the piece of legislation itself. I believe it is a 3-year term period on these grants, and it is around a $5 million grant to a single college or university in 10 different states. There's an exemption on the 10 different states aspect that you can read more about in the bill or in our write-up. S4701 awards grants on a non-competitive basis to small business development centers to support the cybersecurity needs of small business concerns that are served by those centers. The small business development centers may use the amounts received to support the cybersecurity of the small businesses, as well as to enhance cybersecurity training for the employees of those businesses, review the cybersecurity policies, plans, and procedures used, including tabletop exercises to test policies, plans, and procedures, testing cybersecurity standing of the businesses, including via pen testing, and hiring consultants to support the cybersecurity needs of those businesses. The maximum amount of grants allocated for small business development centers located in a small state is $200,000, medium-sized state $300,000, and large state $400,000. We did not have any updates this month on election security or energy. In the federal space, S4629 amends the Carl Levin and Howard P. Buck McKinnon National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2015 to establish minimal requirements for data centers relating to federal agencies in consultation with the administrator of GSA, the Federal Chief Information Officers Council, and the Director of CISA and the National Cyber Director. The minimum requirements include the availability of new data centers, the use of new data centers, the use of sustainable energy sources, uptime percentage, protections against power failures, including on-site energy generation and access to multiple transmission paths, protections against physical intrusion, natural disasters, information security protections required by Subchapter 2 of Chapter 35 of Title 44, United States Code and other applicable law and policy, and any other requirements the administration deems appropriate. S4623 aims to advance government innovation through leading-edge procurement capability within 1 year of enactment. It tasks the administrator in coordination with the Federal Acquisition Institute and the Office of Personnel Management as necessary to pilot a program for entry of junior and middle career professionals to the General Schedule Contracting Series, or GS 1102 workforce, by considering the inclusion of program participants from other jobs and fields, including veterans, military spouses, and private sector procurement professionals, providing alternatives to education and training requirements for the entry into the General Schedule Contracting Series workforce, such as allowing for use of educational credits and technical disciplines relevant to agency procurement, such as information communication technology and scientific and engineering disciplines, providing paths for reciprocity of fulfillment of certification requirements for the Department of Defense professional contracting certification holders and commercial sector acquisition contract certification holders, such as certified professional contract managers and certified federal contract managers, and providing capstone class or experience and relevant mentorship opportunities. Additionally, with the 1 year enactment, the Federal Acquisition Institute, in coordination with the Administrator of General Services, the Chief Information Officers Council, and the United States Digital Service, shall develop and implement and otherwise provide a cross-functional information and communications technology acquisition training program to acquisition workforce members involved in acquiring information communications technology. The training will include learning objectives related to market research and communication with industry, developing requirements, acquisition planning, and awarding and administrating contracts for information and communication technology, including learning objectives, encouraging the use of small business programs to acquire information and communication technology, including learning objectives encouraging the use of commercial and commercially available off-the-shelf technologies to the greatest extent possible, including case studies of lessons learned from federal information and communication technology procurement and contracts, including experiential learning opportunities, including continuous learning recommendations, resources to keep the skills of acquisition workforce members current, and being made available to acquisition workforce members designated by the Chief Acquisition Officer, Senior Procurement Executive, or head of the contracting agency to participate in the training program. Moving on to our financial category. HR 8730 and S 4760 amend the Commodity Exchange Act to provide the Commodity Futures Trading Commission jurisdiction to oversee the spot digital commodity market. The bill requires digital commodity platforms to establish and maintain a program of risk analysis and oversight to identify and minimize sources of operational risk, including cybersecurity risk, through the development of appropriate controls and procedures and automated systems that are reliable and secure and have adequate scalability capacity. Additionally, it requires the digital commodity platforms to establish and maintain emergency procedures, backup facilities, and a plan for disaster recovery that allows for timely recovery and resumption of operations, and the fulfillment of responsibilities and obligations of the digital commodity platform, and to periodically conduct tests that verify that the backup resources of the platforms are sufficient to ensure order processing and trading matching, price reporting, market surveillance, and maintenance of comprehensive and accurate audit trails. Designation of Chief Compliance Officer, who shall report directly to the board or senior officer of the digital platform, review compliance with the core principles described in the bill in consultation with the board of the digital commodity platform, a body performing a function similar to the board, the senior officer of the commodity platform, resolve any conflicts of interest that may arise. Be responsible for establishing and administering policies and procedures required to be established in the section, ensuring compliance with the Act, rules and regulations of the Act, and establishing procedures for remediation of non-compliance issues found in compliance office reviews. S 4698 amends the Federal Credit Union Act to modify requirements relating to the regulation and examination of credit union organizations and service providers to protect credit union customers and strengthen those credit unions against cybersecurity risks, privacy violations, and anti-money laundering concerns. Moving on, S 4741 encourages increased trade and investment between the United States and the countries in the Western Balkans. Within 180 days of enactment of the bill, the Secretary of State, Administrator of the United States Agency for International Development, in coordination with the Secretary of Treasury, Commerce, and the Chief Executive Officer of the United States International Development Finance Corporation, shall submit to the appropriate congressional committees a 5-year regional economic development and democratic resilience strategy for Western Balkans that, among other priorities, develops human institutional capacity and infrastructure across multiple sectors and economies, including clean energy, clean efficiency, agriculture, small and medium-sized enterprise development, health, and cybersecurity. HR 8711 strengthens the bilateral partnership between the United States and Ecuador in support of democratic institutions and rule of law, sustainable and inclusive economic growth, and conservation. In particular, Section 6, Part 14 tasks the Secretary of State with developing and implementing a strategy and related programs to increase the capacity of Ecuador's justice system and law enforcement authorities to combat illicit economies, corruption, transnational criminal organizations, and harmful influence of malign foreign and domestic actors. These efforts include strengthening cybersecurity cooperation to effectively respond to cyber threats, including state-sponsored threats, to share best practices to combat those threats, to help develop and implement information architectures that respect individuals' privacy rights and reduce the risk of data collection through systems that will be exploited by malign state and non-state actors, to improve resilience against cyber attacks, misinformation, and propaganda, and to increase the resilience of critical infrastructure. We did not have any updates this month in our privacy or public health categories. And just as some foreshadowing, we did not have any updates this month in our utilities category. So our last category for this month is our technology category. HR 4346, the CHIPS Act, is one of our enacted bills for this month. We went into a greater deep dive on this in last month's legislative briefing. So we're only going to cover it at a high level today. The bill is around 360 pages long. It was a few different bills that were combined in order to pass, and provisions of the bill include maybe two different brackets, which are the domestic production of semiconductors and incentives for science and technology research and development, and the supplemental funding for U.S. Marshals and other officers to protect the Supreme Court and its justices' staff from threats. We have an extensive write-up of the CHIPS Act in our members' reports, including a breakdown of the different sections that touch on cybersecurity. So if you're interested in learning more, please take a look at our members' reports, or if you have a decent chunk of time that you need something to do in, please take a look at the longer form report, or bill, I mean. S3451 amends section 41001(6)A of the FAST Act by inserting semiconductors, artificial intelligence, machine learning, high performance computing, and advanced computer hardware and software, quantum information systems and technology, data storage and data management, cybersecurity after the term manufacturing. It basically just extends the bill to allow for modern technology, cybersecurity, and other allowances. HR 7535 and S 4592 encourage the migration of federal government information technology systems to quantum-resistant cryptography. This is kind of mirrors one of our agency initiatives for this month. Section 4 of the bill tasks the Director of OMB to establish by rule of binding guidance a requirement for each executive agency to establish and maintain an inventory of each cryptographic system used by the agency. The Director of OMB is instructed to include a description of information technology to be prioritized for migration to post-quantum cryptography, a description of the information required to be reported pursuant to subsection B of the bill, and a process for evaluating progress on migrating information technology to post-quantum cryptography, which shall be automated to the greatest extent possible. Within a year of enactment, it tasks the Director of OMB to issue guidance requiring each executive agency to develop a plan of migration for the information technology of agencies to post-quantum cryptography pursuant to the release of post-quantum cryptographic standards by the Director of NIST. They are also tasked with designating information technology to be migrated to post-quantum cryptography and prioritizing information technology that is designated on the basis of the amount of risk posed by decryption by quantum computers to that technology for migration to post-quantum cryptography. And finally for this month, S4687 enhances the authority granted to the Department of Homeland Security, Department of Justice with respect to unmanned aircraft systems and unmanned aircraft equipped authorized for unmanned aircraft system detection, identification, monitoring, and tracking for the Department of Homeland Security and Department of Justice is limited to systems or technologies that were tested and evaluated by DHS or the DOJ, including evaluation of any potential counterintelligence or cybersecurity risks that are annually reevaluated for any changes in risk, including counterintelligence and cybersecurity risks, that were determined by the FCC and the NTIA not to adversely impact the use of the communication spectrum, that were determined by the FAA not to adversely impact the use of the aviation spectrum or otherwise adversely impact the national airspace system, and that are included on a list of authorized equipment maintained by the Department of Defense in coordination with the Department of Justice, FAA, FCC, and FTIA. Thank you for your time. This concludes the ICIT August 2022 legislative briefing. We hope you had a great Labor Day weekend and have a great rest of your month. We will have the September legislative briefing near the end of September, and we will also have the Q3 ICIT Fellows Insights discussion, and we'll be announcing the topic of that relatively soon. Take care and stay safe.